Hi everyone, good day and welcome to a new webinar of our series. Today we're starting a new series with a friend and a close colleague of mine, Mahmoud Magdy, discussing cloud. And the first session will discuss cloud migration challenges. I'm happy to have you, Mahmoud. It's been a long time since our last meeting and project together.
Thank you, and welcome everyone.
Thanks, Mahmoud. So today I believe it will be a very exciting session. We will talk about the why to start thinking about migrating to the cloud. We will discuss the main challenges to migrate to cloud. Mahmoud will explain to us these challenges from top management or CXO level and also from IT technical level. What are these challenges? So before we start, let me introduce Mahmoud Magdi in few words. Actually, I worked with Mahmoud for many years, the Middle East. After that, I moved to Australia, and Mahmoud he went back to our home country, Egypt, and he started his own company called sysGravity. He's currently the CTO and co-founder of this company, specialized in cloud and security applications. He has a really extensive experience in pre-sales, consultancy, and I know him in working on ground. I know his skills. We managed a lot of big projects together, including government clouds and security, smart cities. Mahmoud also is one of the few Microsoft MVP, most valuable professionals, semantics be expert and VMware V expert, in addition to many expertise, and he was also part of the Microsoft advisory board. Really excited to have you again, Mahmoud. And are you ready for this session?
Let us get started. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's kick in directly. So why to migrate to cloud? In addition to the obvious reason that most of the customer migrate to cloud from cost perspective in order to save some budget from capex and opex, and we will explain with Mahmoud how. I believe there are some other reasons to migrate to cloud. As example, staff productivity, because when you migrate to the cloud, people will start focusing on the actual work by minimizing the repeatable task or the task which can be automated. Also, the cloud, it's available in globally with high available infrastructure. So this will allow you to have operational resiliency. So whenever your workload is on the cloud, you can actually reach it from anywhere. And if there is a failure, you can get from the same VM, as example, from a different availability zone or from different region. In addition to business agility, because with the cloud, it will allow you a better and faster time to market. You can have your DevOps environment. You can test a new feature in few minutes, and then if it didn't work, you can kill it with a minimum amount of payment. So, Mahmoud, what do you think from your experience? Do you believe that these are the main reasons to migrate to cloud, or customers also have some other reason or focus on one of these four?
Yes, traditionally, those were the main reasons for customers to move to the cloud. And yes, cutting cost, staff productivity is one of the main reasons. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, I believe that there are more reasons now to uh, offer to migrate to the cloud because people now would like to work from home and accessing business applications and business resources from anywhere. And not everybody is ready to take this. So this is why the migration to the cloud is the easiest way to offer secure working from home environment and allowing business um, to resume work and continue working and offloading a lot of resource consumption and cost that would be taken to the on-premise data centers and is not available there yet. Some technology is not available, some data centers, and people will be working from home securely and easily.
I agree 100%. So not only you move to cloud to innovate or to enhance, but even as Mahmoud mentioned, the day-to-day work or business as usual, with this current situation, we may need cloud for everything. So a few trends that the cloud, just few numbers, and then we'll start talking about the challenges. That as per right scale, that there are 91% of the companies they're having some workload on the cloud, either it's IaaS or PaaS, platform as a service, or SaaS. So the adoption is almost very high, almost 100%. And most of the customers, they're actually acquiring hybrid cloud. So you will not find one customer where all the workloads hosted in Microsoft, but they're usually a mix. Some workload in Azure, some workload in AWS, and a few others in Google, Oracle, Alibaba, and so on. One major point, and also Mahmoud will cover it and we'll discuss it in details, is security. When you migrate to a cloud, that number of attacks increase heavily. That's why the cloud service provider and the cloud provider actually invested a lot of money to secure their cloud, and they also will discuss this point. The last one, which will lead to our discussion about the challenges, as per also again right scale, that the top five challenges for enterprises and corporate are the governance, the expertise or skills of the team, the spend, or we can call it cost, security, and compliance. So what do you think, Mahmoud? Do you agree with the right scale, or we have also additional challenges we'll talk about?
You have more points. Yes, definitely right scale are sitting on the money. Yet I believe that there are more challenges. Uh, there are more business challenges and technical challenges that we will cover in the upcoming slides.
So yeah, really, yeah, exciting. So let's go ahead and tell us about from business or CXO. I like this term, CXO challenges. So if I'm a customer, I'm a CEO of a company, and I'm starting my journey. So what you are going to tell me about the main challenges I need to consider?
Yeah, so working with a lot of CEOs and CEOs, the number one challenge that I have seen across most of the companies I work with is which cloud to choose. There are a lot of cloud offering nowadays. There are Microsoft, Amazon, Google Cloud, and now also Alibaba and Oracle are offering their own cloud services. Those are the big names, and of course there are the second tier of cloud services providers like Linode, for example, offering their cloud services. So the CXOs are always in a dilemma or trying to solve a dilemma which cloud service to choose. Some people will say that Amazon is the lead, so let us use Amazon, and some people would say let us use Microsoft. I would say that the right solution to answer this question is to identify your business technical requirements properly and identify two main elements: the support and the skills within the organization itself. For example, I was speaking to some customers who wanted to use Alibaba Cloud. So I was speaking, do you have any in-house Alibaba cloud skills? They said no. Okay, do you have any local partner to work with to solve your Alibaba cloud problem? They said no. So it's not against Alibaba or something. Maybe there are other partners and companies working on the ground with Alibaba Cloud. It's not to say something bad about Alibaba Cloud, but not everyone is working for everything. Some people have a lot of skills in Oracle Cloud, and they don't have any skills in Microsoft Cloud. So
Exactly.
the support internally and externally around the cloud is very important because it's going to be a long-term commitment toward this cloud. So answer this question will be around defining your technical requirement, which workloads you want to use, which technologies you need, the support from the vendor itself on the ground and on the portal itself, and the support internally, your skill set within your IT team itself.
100% agree, Mahmoud. Yes, and also, yeah, from يعني the architect and the real architect that they understand, they build the solution based on the requirement. And I want to give another example which was published recently, that when Zoom, after this COVID pandemic and the huge increase in their bandwidth, they were expecting around 200,000 terabyte to be transferred per month. So that's why the main requirement for them, which cloud provider will give them the best or the cheapest rate, and they, based on that, they decide to go with Oracle because this was their critical point to
Problem.
decide based on. Yeah, good. Thank you. So what's next? Yeah, somehow related. Yeah.
Yeah, justify cloud costs. So traditionally, we have been working with CapEx model, and everybody's comfortable with this model. You buy a hardware appliance or a software license, you depreciate it over 3 or 5 years based on your company system and financial model, and then after the 5 year, you buy a new one. We have been doing this for the past 20 years, and everybody's comfortable with this model. Now, we are with the cloud, you move to the OpEx model. And with the OpEx model, there is also a challenge in cost, which is you pay per use. And as I usually love to say to my customer, with every breath you take with the cloud, you pay for it. Uh, yes. So, for example, Microsoft doesn't charge for inbound data transfer, but it charges you for outbound data transfers.
Exactly.
You know, so how do you move from the capex model to the opex model? Especially, I've been working with some companies where those companies are a joint venture, and the cost must be distributed across different business entities. So how do
Yes.
you split the cost and relate the cost to the consumption? Because in the cloud, the cost is based on the consumption.
Yeah.
So how do you identify which business unit have been using which technical or cloud workload and split this cost? It's a hassle and it's a
Yes.
problem for most of the CIOs and CEOs at the same level. So this is one of the major problems that you need to work with a cloud partner or a cloud service provider to solve and understand the cloud cost model that you are going to expect.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you are a customer and everybody's telling you that moving to the cloud will save you money, but there is, as you mentioned, Mahmoud, there are some challenges. How to control your spending, how to, as I mentioned, to if you have cost centers, how to distribute the load based on the consumption. And I also, some of the companies, when it comes to their financial model, they also prefer to have some capex. So because if everything is OpEx, it will affect their situation on the and share value. So I believe also some of the cloud provider now they give the option to consider maybe the VMs or the compute resources as a capex, and so you need to understand this, and you need to understand the cloud provider capabilities to meet your requirement. Yeah. What about the third challenge, which is somehow new for me, license consumption?
Yeah. So basically, when you buy a cloud license, for example, like Office 365 or Google Suite, you need to make sure of two things. One is having the proper user profiling happening on the ground and identify exactly which license you're going to buy based on the user profiling that you have done. For example, not everybody in every organization is using Office at its maximum, all right? Some people are using mail, and I have seen, for example, people don't use OneDrive or SharePoint at all.
Totally,
Teams,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
For example, I have seen organizations with thousands and thousands of Teams license and with zero utilization of Teams license, although that the organization have paid for this license. So CXOs are challenged every day with ensuring that the usage, not the usage, the license that they have bought is being consumed properly by end users. So this is a challenge because it affects the cost of the cloud services that you are consuming. And then there is always two questions to answer every fiscal year. One, am I using the licenses properly? Because some people would say, some CXOs expect, I have paid a lot for those licenses, and I'm not utilizing them. And amazingly, they found that they are licenses at its maximum level.
Yes.
The other question that you would expect, or you see, that I would like to buy extra licenses, while once a proper assessment is being done, they found that they are underutilized, and there are extra licenses that are not being utilized at all. So all of this affects the bottom line and the top line of which your financial forecast and the license cost that you are buying from the cloud, especially that you buy the cloud and you pay for it either monthly or yearly. So you have to do this exercise either monthly or yearly.
100%, very valid point, and I believe not every organization or entity aware of that, and maybe they keep paying month by month and year by year without noticing of this waste. For me, I consider it a waste. You get money. If you have 1,000 employee, you have to be smart. You don't just get 1,000 license from everything, email, office, and you have to evaluate the need and the use case. Yeah. Somehow, another challenge related to the previous one, which is the license compliance. Yeah, I believe here you are talking from legal and from usage also again perspective. So, what is the challenge if you can give the audience more information about it?
So the first challenge is discovering um, uh, cloud assets. Now, you can, for example, I have seen customers who have provisioned some VMs for testing, and they left those VMs. And by the end of the year, they found that they pay 5,000 US dollars per month, which is about 60,000 US dollars, because they forgot to turn off those VMs. So from assets discovery perspective, very challenging. You need to work hardly to discover all your assets and your workloads across your clouds and ensure that those assets are being utilized properly. And if they are not utilized, you need to shut down and take them down. This is one part of the challenge. The second part of the challenge, as I said, the legal part of the compliance part, because I have seen uh, customers who bought Microsoft Office license from the cloud, but because the local IT, they are not aware how to utilize or activate the license, they were using the on-premise license version, and they have been cracking Office, although they have already a legitimate license Office.
Yeah.
So this is one of the second part of the problem. The third part of the problem is the license portability, because
Yeah.
as you have highlighted before the recording starts, you could take some of your license and reassign or use them on the cloud and save some licenses. And people, they are not aware how uh, uh, to utilize this license portability across the cloud and take your on-premise license and use it on the cloud. And not everybody is offering this license for portability thing. So you need to take this at large and take a proper approach with your license and with your license provider and partner and your cloud provider, and take this exercise and know what the pieces that you need to consider to make yourself compliant from legal and license perspective.
Yes, 100%. Because yeah, at the end, this is a cost for your company, and your main job as a CXO to assure that your asset and the company is still profitable and minimize the loss. And actually, this is a waste. This is not something mandatory to have. So you need to be smart. You need to check, as Mahmoud mentioned, if you have some Windows license or Office license already on-prem, you can migrate them. But what about other application? If you have a third-party application or another application which is for a small company, is it possible to also migrate the license? What to do? So these things need to be studied and carefully designed for. I believe the last challenge from business perspective, and I agree with you. I was also discussing with Mahmoud before the recording that I'm facing this everywhere in Europe, in Middle East, and even when I moved to Australia, with the new trends and a lot of evolving technologies, SDN, cloud, IoT, even service provider segment routing, and so on, the top management, they are actually struggling to define the right strategy and roadmap for 1 or 3 years. So most of them, they need some trusted advisory. Is this what you are talking about, Mahmoud? The vision and define the strategy and how to make it specific to the cloud? What are the challenges specific to defining the cloud strategy?
So the first thing is people and CXOs are hearing cloud dreams. So everybody would like to move to the cloud, and but the problem when you go to the business and see what you do on the ground, it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't really fit the cloud-only strategy. So you need to work with a partner to properly define your requirements, your business use cases, and see how would you take it to the cloud? As I've been explaining to you before this session, I have been working with a customer who wanted to move to the cloud, to move everything to the cloud.
Yeah,
But when I asked them about their wireless access points and whether they are cloud found that they don't have a cloud-ready access points, and they must have access points per branch.
sure.
And also for their IP phones, and they were bidding to go with Cisco IP phones. Meanwhile, it's not cloud ready yet. So how would it take to move to the cloud? So defining a strategy and take at large and take every piece of your business and technology and see if it is cloud ready or not, and how would you move it to the cloud is very important part before taking the decision to move it to the cloud or not. So defining a strategy, how would we move our business? Because there is also some implication on the business on how to when you move to the cloud. So for example,
Yes,
if your business is doing everything is using IP phones on the premise, and now you're moving to soft phones, it will affect you. How would you do the business? So
sure.
it's not a technical decision. It's not a business decision. People, the CIOs and CTOs and CEOs will have to sit together and take it step by step to solve this puzzle. And defining a strategy and a roadmap, because it's a very long journey, will be very important.
100%, Mahmoud. I agree. As you mentioned, it's a journey, and from our experience, and even I worked with Mahmoud, as I told you, in few private clouds. You need to build it into like a journey, and you cannot go from day one from zero cloud to 100% cloud. You have to do it in phases. You have to define what are the workloads or application will go part of phase one. And also within the migration strategy itself, are you going to, Mahmoud is more expert in infrastructure and system, are you going to move the application like lift and shift, just rehost the same application, or just maybe re-image it or re-enhance it, maybe completely rehost it into containers and make it cloud native? So a lot of questions that you need to answer. If you want to add something, Mahmoud, regarding this point.
Yes, it depends, and we will go through it in the technical discussion or the technical challenges. Not all applications are cloud ready. So so it takes us to the fourth point: having an the proper asset discovery and planning for which asset and application. How would you take it and move it to the cloud, and what does it take to move it to the cloud? Because some applications are not cloud ready yet, so we will have to redesign it or purchase a new application. So it's, as you said, it's a journey, and it has to be taken one step at a time.
100%. So, finishing the cloud challenges from business or the CXO point of view, just to recap, you have to at least study and analyze these 5 points, which cloud to choose, considering your business requirement, technical requirements, and goals. Justify the cloud cost, OpEx versus CapEx, license consumption, license compliance, how to work with license, how if it's can be moved to cloud or not, and last but not least, the defining the right strategy, roadmaps, phases to migrate to the cloud. Thank you, Mahmoud, for that elaboration. And let's move to the thing which I believe most of the audience will enjoy more, the technical stuff or IT pros, because most of the audience from that category. What are the main challenges when you come from network director, storage manager, and so on? When you meet these guys, what are the main challenges?
So the first challenge for IT pros is to manage the cost. Um, the problem, as we said in the previous section, is that you pay for everything that you do on the cloud. So which workloads should I use? Because, for example, for virtual machines, let us take a simple example on virtual machine. From the same virtual machine specifications on Microsoft Azure, for example, you have one VM with 180,000, 100 per month, and the same VM specs are 380 USD per month, and the same VM specs is 1,700 US dollars per month. Same specifications, 4 vCPUs and 12 or 16 GB of memory, but totally different use cases and different capabilities. So identify and managing the cost and managing the expectations of the business side to make sure that we don't exceed certain limits of the costs per month or per year is very challenging on the cloud, because on the cloud you see unexpected utilizations or factors that affect your cost. For example, bandwidth utilization, as you have explained on Zoom. All of a sudden, everybody is having conferences. I have seen some customers who were struggling with once the pandemic has happened, everybody started to upload their data to the
Yeah.
SharePoint and the file server on the cloud. So all of a sudden, they have seen a plethora or a spike in the network utilization or on the bandwidth. So they didn't account for it, and they started pay for it because now you pay for those extra bandwidth. So how to manage it is very challenging when it comes nowadays on the cloud for IT pros.
100%. How to choose, as you mentioned, how to choose the right service. So even within AWS, as example, if you have the simple EC2, you have a lot. Shall you go for T? Shall you go for the compute optimized, memory optimized? Is it high performance computing? A lot of options. So if you're not expert, maybe you will be يعني, in a dilemma. Which one to choose? Which one to go for? Yeah.
Yes, and the same, and it's even more challenging when it comes to the SaaS model, because for the SaaS model, for example, with Office 365, you have the P license, the K license, the F license, and the E license. And in each category, you have two or more options to deal with. So which license would you choose is different, and the same for Google. So and you could be and you could be, and I have seen customers who paid, I have seen partners even offering the customer the same cloud offering, but up to 20,000 US dollars per year difference, just because they were using the wrong SKUs or part numbers, or they're offering the wrong license models. So it affects you.
100%. So we need to be very careful. So if the company own or have these skills, it will be okay. But I believe in most of the cases, they need to consult a partner or system integrator, yes, to come with the right solutions. Uh, Cloud performance, yeah, and 100% agree with you. So what are the main parameters that you need to consider when you try to identify or analyze the cloud performance?
Um, the challenge with the cloud performance is not really it's let me rephrase it. Cloud performance is not really an issue when it comes to the infrastructure as a service model or the platform as a service model, because you can monitor those easily. The challenge is with the SaaS model, because how would you that your is offering you the adequate performance? How would you ensure, for example, that your email is being delivered properly? People are having either voice or video conferencing, it's not from your side, it's from the cloud provider side. So those are the issues that IT pros need to solve and plan ahead, because the business will come back and tell them, I have invested, I have bought the state-of-the-art technology, and yet I'm suffering from the end user perspective. And this is why you need to solve the problem from two sides. Two sides. One side of from the end user side, which you need to work with the end user and analyze the end user experience from the end user client side perspective from his own laptop, and work with from the other side with your cloud service provider to ensure that you are monitoring the proper metrics to ensure that your SaaS is performing adequately. And this is a problem, because if you are not monitoring from the two sides, you will not be able to judge on your SaaS or your cloud performance, and people or end users experience would be affected.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the very famous dilemma which we live with the last 30, 40 years. Customer having a problem, and as we always say, go ahead, blame the network. So not every problem is because of the network congestions. So you need a visibility to understand if the problem is in the application. Is it from, as Mahmoud mentioned, customer side, cloud side? Is it the bandwidth which the customer, the end user is using? You need to understand. I remember, Mahmoud, when we worked in this private cloud, it was a bit challenging because the entities was asking about a lot of performance reporting, and in
Yes.
some cloud, this kind of report doesn't come out of the box. So you need to start check with your cloud provider if they can do some customized reporting, or maybe the report is there, but you don't know how to reach it or how to analyze it as well. Third one, I believe it's for us is obvious. Everybody, when you talk to the cloud, he will tell you no. What about security and compliance?
Uh, so yes, it's a big issue. Different angles you need to consider when it comes to moving your workloads to the cloud. One, data privacy. Two, data protection. Three, data security. Four, infrastructure security. Six or five, end user security, because now your end users are accessing the data at the cloud, and you don't have proper visibility like before. You don't control it like before. They access the data from their end users' laptops from their own homes, or maybe if you are using BYOD model, they are accessing or having or owning corporate data on their home laptops. How would you secure it? It's a problem. It's a challenge. It takes a lot. There are solutions for every problem, but you need to know which problems are the critical ones, and you need to plan to solve them once you go from day zero to the cloud. Because, for example, you need to consider data security. For example, if it is an issue or data compliance or data labeling. For example, you take it as a tier. And as you know, security is not one circle, it's different circles.
Yeah, security and defense.
Different in depth.
Certain depth, sorry, yeah, yeah.
Yes, so you need to consider which tiers are important to you to start covering from day zero to in the cloud journey, and then start solving those challenges, and then take it from there.
I agree with you, Mahmoud, and also to explain it more or stress more that most of this cloud provider, Azure, AWS, they will tell you it's like the security is what they call it shared security model. So they will be responsible of security of the cloud itself. So securing the data center, physical security, securing the rack, securing the operating system if you have IS, and then you, Mr. Customer, will be responsible to secure uh, in cloud, your data in the cloud, your application on the cloud, and so on. So, and you need to be smart and do, as we discussed, defense in depth, multiple layers to make it. Yeah. What about we touch base on it in the business. is all the application or every application ready to move to cloud? And what is the challenge related to this one?
Uh, Definitely not every application is cloud-ready application. As we spoke before, I had S400 application, for example. Most of them, I'm not aware of any S400 application that is cloud-ready. Uh, there's there are also challenges about the investment that have been already done on the network or the hardware layer. If you invested and bought a firewall or an IPS, IDS, web filtering application, antivirus application, so even the infrastructure or the technology applications, not all of them are cloud ready and not all of them are capable of cloud integration. So
Yes.
how would you plan for it and how would you take it within your cloud journey is very important to understand what does it take. For example, as I said, if you have all of your Active Directory or directory information on the cloud, and you would like to have a firewall to authenticate your users from your on-premise data center, how would you move it? How would you, so
Yes.
not how you move it, how would you do it? Uh,
Yes.
if your firewall is not cloud ready and doesn't offer cloud integration, you will have two blocks or two islands to deal with. And this is when fractures in the cloud integration starts to happen. And when you see people are authenticating, for example, with multiple with multiple identity providers, multiple usernames and passwords,
Yes.
and when you start enforcing password complexity, people will start writing it down and put it in sticky notes and it
Yeah.
takes back to the compliance and security.
That's
So you need to
100%.
yeah, so you need to solve uh, uh, those non-cloud ready applications to understand how would you uh, put them within your cloud journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to make sure that your solution is optimal, easy to use, as you mentioned, not to, because if you have a complex solution, people will try to be smart and play around it, and it will start opening some vulnerabilities and security holes, and we saw it many times. The other aspect of cloud, let's say if you have an application which actually ready to move to cloud, but maybe it's a monolithic application, one tier application. Also, if you have multiple options, as we discussed, maybe you can just lift and shift and rehost it to the cloud, or maybe you are trying to do some innovation and modernization. So, what are the challenges associated with trying to modernize or enhance, innovate, try to make your application cloud native? Is it that easy in one?
It depends. It depends. And this is why you need to work with your software provider first, and second, with a partner to re-architect or redesign the application on the cloud. Because, for example, as I said, if it is easy, most of the software providers would say, let us lift and shift the application. But this is not the best option on the cloud. For example, if you have multiple applications that they are using SQL database and you would like to have SQL as platform,
Yeah.
you need to re-architect, maybe you need to re-architect or redesign your SQL applications to meet the new requirements for SQL platform as a service.
Yeah.
Maybe if you move into SQL infrastructure as a service, it will be more expensive than moving it to SQL platform as a service. Maybe your application is not ready to the cloud, so your software provider will need to mod re-architect or re-engineer its application first before moving it and taking it back to the cloud. So it depends, and this is why you need some consultancy and work with partners and vendors to make sure that you have a proper strategy to move to the cloud.
100%, yeah. I believe one of the customer which work with recently, they said their roadmap to migrate some of the application, it's almost 3 years. So to move it and modernize it. So as we mentioned, it's not an easy job or one day job lift and shift. It's require a lot of planning and design. Um, Last challenge, which is cloud migration woes.
So, so you decided, so you solved all the 9 challenges before, and you are ready to move to the cloud. Um, uh, One is, as you said, how would we move to the cloud? And during this period of moving to the cloud, how would we configure our hybrid cloud? How would we ensure that users are accessing the cloud applications and the legacy application on-premise or across multiple clouds properly, and ensuring that the end user experience doesn't fall apart? It's a challenge because the migration to the cloud, especially if you are a large or medium to large organization, takes a lot of time. And during this time, you need to ensure that end users and business won't be interrupted. So the migration itself from the on-premise data centers to the cloud is a challenge. The second thing is integrating those cloud workloads across multiple clouds as well is a challenge because, for example, Oracle now is offering a lot of their ERP and software over the cloud as a service now, but
Yes.
people organizations are using, for example, Microsoft Azure Cloud. So how would you? I've been working with a couple of customers actually, who had been trying to integrate Oracle Cloud with Microsoft Office 365 and Azure. So integration across multiple clouds as well is challenging. So you need to consider all of those parts and take it through your journey and move slowly but surely your workloads from the on-premise to the cloud, from the cloud to the cloud, and ensure that end users and business are continuing working, because business will not wait for even a month, not even a week, not even a day to move your workload to the cloud. It doesn't happen. You need to plan it ahead and make sure that the business will continue once the migration is done and even during the migration.
Yeah, 100% Mahmoud. Yeah. Thank you, Mahmoud, for your time. I believe it was very insightful and informative. And this is just, as we mentioned, this is just the first session. I know Mahmoud is very busy running his own company, but I will try to have multiple sessions with him. So maybe for the next session, we'll start talking about, give the audience a bit of insight about the strategy. What are the best workloads or modules to start with from your data center, and what are the things that you consider during this proof of concept phase, and so on. If you want to add any point before we
Thank you
close.
so much for inviting me to this webinar, and I would like to have more in the near future, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thanks again, and for everyone, happy Eid, and stay tuned. Goodbye.